The old man stood still at the gates of the National Cemetery, wrapped in the bitter cold of a grey winter morning. His faded military uniform hung neatly on his frail frame, the tarnished buttons polished with care. In his hands he held a bouquet of white chrysanthemums tied with a frayed navy blue ribbon. He said nothing, just stared at the distant courtyard where the ceremony was underway, solemn, silent, and full of honor. A young soldier approached, voice firm. "I'm sorry, sir. This is a private funeral. Your name isn't on the list." The old man quietly opened his worn leather wallet. From it, he pulled out an old photograph, sepia-toned and weathered, two young men shoulder to shoulder, faces smeared with battlefield mud, but smiling wide like they'd just survived hell together. "I once saved his life. I only ask to stand at a distance to say goodbye to a fellow soldier." But the guard shook his head. He stood there, alone, among strangers who didn't know his name, didn't care why he came. Until from across the field a figure broke. Away from the rows of honored seats, a 4-star general. He raised his hand and commanded, "Hold on! Stop everything! That man once saved mine!" The entire ceremony fell silent, and for the first time, every eye turned toward the forgotten veteran at the gate. The old man's name was John, a brave soldier who fought through the relentless battles of the Vietnam War. When he returned home, he chose a quiet life in a small house, where the soft glow of a dim lamp illuminated faded medals and worn certificates, silent reminders of a time long past. In this peaceful town, people had nearly forgotten him, forgotten the comrade he once fought beside, forgotten the long nights they shared, filled with fear and fragile hope. John had no family by his side, only memories and old photographs soaked with the sweat and tears of fallen comrades. Every morning, the steady ticking of an antique clock echoed through the empty room, reminding him of moments that would never come back. Today, John came to the National Cemetery not as a guest, but carrying a bouquet of white chrysanthemums and a faded photograph, the only keepsake left of his closest friend, the man who once carried him through hellish days of war. All he wished was to stand beyond the gates, to light a single candle and bid farewell to a piece of his youth, now forever at rest. Though stopped at the gate, determination shone in his eyes, unwavering. For John, this was not about honor or protocol. It was about loyalty, a silent friendship, and a bond that only those who have fought side by side can understand. John walked slowly toward the cemetery gate, his breath rising in soft white clouds in the cold air, his eyes fixed on the solemn rows of soldiers and the white graves standing like an unyielding formation, reflecting his deep longing to be part of this sacred moment. But right at the gate, a young man in uniform stepped forward and stopped him. "Sorry, sir, this ceremony is for invited guests only." "Your name isn't on the list." The firm voice sounded like an invisible wall between them. John replied quietly, his voice steady but full of persistence. "I was a comrade of the man who passed. I just want to stand outside, light a candle, and say goodbye." The young man shook his head, his eyes unmoved. Behind them, the drums echoed, and the rhythmic footsteps of the honor guard seemed to drown out the old man's faint words. There he stood, small and alone in that solemn, cold space, with only the wind whispering through the grass. A reminder of memories unfinished, friendships that cannot be forgotten. Being blocked wasn't just a gate slamming shut, it was the denial of a right to remember, a right held by aging soldiers who once bled and bonded in battle. He stood silently, but within his heart a flame of justice smoldered, a flame that could never be extinguished, no matter how many times darkness tried to cover it. A solemn atmosphere enveloped the cemetery as the honor guard took their positions. The steady beat of the drum echoed like the pounding heart of a collective paying respects to a revered four-star general. Flags were raised high, synchronized footsteps marching on the cold ground, every gaze fixed on the center of the ceremony. Then, in the midst of this sacred moment, a sudden announcement cut through the silence. "Pause the funeral, the four-star." General's voice rang out, firm and commanding. Everyone looked up, eyes turning toward him. His sharp gaze was mixed with an unshakable resolve. He pointed toward the cemetery gate, where John, the small-framed old man, his eyes burning with steadfast determination, stood. "Why are you standing outside the gate?" the general asked, his tone deep yet serious. A hush fell over the crowd, filled with surprise and admiration. John, who had only wished for a quiet moment of remembrance, suddenly became the center of everyone's attention. The general strode to the gate and personally opened the way. He looked directly into John's aged but resolute eyes and said, "This friend, who stood by me through countless battles, will never be left outside the gate." John stepped into the cemetery, no longer a lonely figure blocked at the entrance, but a hero welcomed by comrades and history alike. The drums resumed, this time beating the rhythm of justice and honor. Around them, people fell silent, sensing the weight of the moment. The peak of fairness restored, a friendship affirmed beyond time and prejudice. John bowed before the grave, his trembling fingers gently placing incense atop the headstone. Inside him, loneliness was replaced by the warmth of friendship and recognition. This story was more than a funeral. It was a tale of loyalty, of bonds that transcend all trials. The four-star general did not just stop the funeral, he halted prejudice itself, restoring justice to an old friend. Sunlight filtered through the trees, casting light on weathered faces and hopeful eyes. John stood there, a faint smile on his lips, feeling that no matter where life took him, friendship, respect, and fairness would always find their way home. The battle began under the relentless blaze of a scorching summer sun. Dust swirled in thick waves, burning like fire against their skin. John and Michael, two young soldiers, stood side by side amidst the storm of flames, their hearts pounding so loudly it echoed in their ears, the acrid smell of gunpowder mixed with the sweat soaking their skin. John glanced at Michael, his blue eyes held both fear and a fierce determination. No one knew what tomorrow would bring. They only knew to live for this moment, every second, every breath. Michael gripped John's hand tightly. No words needed, but that strength flowed straight to their hearts. Gunfire roared all around, bullets raining like cold flashes of light. John felt a sharp sting from a shallow wound on his shoulder, pain simmering beneath the surface, but he could not let it weaken him. They had to be strong, for both of them. The battle dragged on, the blaring alarms drowning out all else. Friends fell in waves, cries for help haunting their minds. But amid the chaos, John and Michael found each other, the only support in this brutal war. When the final whistle blew, they looked at each other, knowing survival was no mere chance. It was a promise, a vow that they would carry on no matter what storms lay ahead. In that moment, shrouded in the smoky haze of war, their friendship was forged like steel, unbreakable and steadfast. A solemn silence hung over the funeral grounds, the tolling bell echoing deep within every heart, stirring a profound sorrow. The crowd stood motionless, their eyes heavy with grief, fixed on the flag-draped coffin, resting place of the great general. A gentle breeze swept through, softly soothing the aching souls gathered there. The golden light of dusk bathed everything in a serene yet reverent glow. Whispered voices, soft sighs, and quiet tears tracing down cheeks blended into a mournful symphony of loss. The old soldier, frail and slow, walked with deliberate steps, each one a heavy farewell. His eyes scanned the crowd, filled with memories, deep regret, and boundless respect for the comrade and commander he had stood beside all his life. The final speech rang out, voice trembling yet sincere, reaching into the hearts of all present. Stories of sacrifice, courage, and brotherhood were shared, painting the portrait of a true hero, not only on the battlefield, but throughout his entire life. In that moment, time seemed to pause. Emotions swelled, reverence and sorrow intertwined, leaving a sacred imprint forever etched in the memory of every soul there. Every person's life is a journey filled with hardships and tough choices. In the final moments, what truly matters isn't fame or power, but the human connection, the understanding and respect we show one another. The old soldier, having endured years of pain and struggle, teaches us a timeless lesson about loyalty and genuine friendship, values that transcend time. A funeral is not just a farewell, it's a moment to reflect on life's meaning and the deep bonds that tie us together. When the four-star general paused the ceremony, he wasn't merely stopping time. He was reminding everyone of the power of compassion, respect, and brotherhood, sacred qualities we all must cherish. Let us remember that no matter how life changes, as long as we offer each other sincerity and honor, we will find the greatest strength of all, the strength of humanity. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to hit subscribe and share the video, because it's the respect and compassion we spread that make the world a better place. Don't forget to ring the bell so you won't miss more meaningful stories coming your way. Thank you for listening and being with us.